$1 million project, but 2.9 million of it is Develop Road, and 200,000 is the sanitation master plan, which Prime Aid is working on now. Okay, all right. So with that, Todd or Colby, operations?
Well, you need a motion.
Okay, what motion?
Yeah, you need a motion to approve that easement agreement.
Oh, I thought.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, do I have a second to approve the easement agreement?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, operations.
Yeah, under wastewater treatment, we've drained the clarifier number 1 at Inez for contractors to get the scope of work they needed, for the rehab. Installed air diffusers in the contact chamber at Inez. Drained all the sludge out of the clarifier 2 at Inez. Maintenance was completed on SBR 1 and 2 blowers at Tug Valley. We had a Prime A site visit with them. We dye tested Davis Branch lift station, reviewed the flow diagrams of the plant, marked valves, and tested the ox ditch bypass lines for the upcoming work at Inez. Cleaned the contact chamber at Inez, installed the pontoon aerator number 2 back in the ox ditch at Inez, and cleaned the discharge site at Inez. Under collections, we've rebuilt 7 E1 grinders in-house. We installed a new roller, new tracks on our excavator. Preventative maintenance was completed on all the lift stations in the Tug Valley zone. Been working on getting quotes for the IGA lift station. We inspected all cleanouts on Blackwell.
Those quotes for IGA, that's from the flood damage, right?
Yes.
Yeah, IGA is still the only one that we have operating on the temporary system. Everything else is back semi-operational, but that one still has a temporary pump.
Right. Yeah.
Next page are Inez and Tug Valley wastewater plant operation. Tug Valley for June 25, everything passed. June 25 for Inez, we had 2 pass, 2 fails on E. coli. We have noticed quite a bit of a better effluent coming out of Inez here lately with, all the work that we've been doing.
But since we increased the dose of the PAA, our disinfection on E. coli has passed almost every time now. Is that statement true?
Yeah, we've had one since we made that increase that we discussed with Prime, but it shows 2 there, that's before, the first one was before we made that change.
Right. And the one that did fail was because we were emptying out the clarifier and we didn't adjust the dose when we did it.
Correct.
And that's why.
Yeah.
And I'll get into this PAA discussion a little bit later in this meeting because it's important to talk about some things that's going on there. But I wanted to point that out to the board. Okay, go ahead.
Repair expenses ending in June 25, we're sitting at $19,171 out of $55,000, leaving us at 35%. Chemical expenses ending in June, $8,138 out of the $25,000, leaving us sitting at 33%. Following that is your monthly transaction notes, and following that is your DMRs for both sewer plants.
So we'll go ahead and get into capital projects. I'll update the board on the capital projects. I've already touched on them briefly. So on the Inez wastewater treatment plant rehab, we've just finished negotiations with NAC. As this board may recall, we've been negotiating with NAC for 2 months now. And I'm happy to report that NAC has agreed to meet our position that they perform the work for what's budgeted. $595,000 is what's budgeted for the rehab. They've agreed to perform the work that's necessary for this plant, once rehab, to meet its permit discharge standards. We were off. Before they were saying $685,000, and then they made allowances for other things, and those allowances would have led to change orders, which meant it would have drove up cost. And we've been successful in negotiating those change orders away, and we've also negotiated 685 down to 595, which means now we can get the work done for what the monies we have and finish it. So later on, I'll ask for the board's approval for me to sign an agreement with them. But I'm happy to report we're past the negotiation phase. And then on the Develop Road, we've been through multiple designs and looking at various things. I reviewed 4 cost options based off of 4 different approaches for Develop Road. Unfortunately, when you look at how much money we have in the grant money's not enough to cover the best option, and I think we're gonna end up being about $1 million short. So I'm gonna be working with Fahy to figure out how to come up with additional monies. There's avenues that we can take that I already know, but that design is moving forward. And we've got a meeting this Thursday at 9 a.m.? 9 a.m. to go over that project in AWR's office is where we're going to have that. So that design is progressing, but there's, and I'll come back to this board with more details once I know which option we're gonna be able to go with. But one of the things in the options that we do is we evaluate what's called ROI, return on investment. It's one thing to say it costs this much, but how many customers will you pick up and how long does it take to pay that investment back? Even though it's a grant, I still look at ROI from a perspective. The more customers we can pick up, the more revenue we can generate, the better we can pay our bills. So that's in process. The sanitation master plan is also in process, and once I've got a good draft, I'll get it out to the board so you can take a look at the sanitation master plan. And again, we need to have that master plan so that we can better plan our future as far as what we do on sanitation. Those are that's the projects that we have on sanitation right now. Any questions on that? On the SIP list, I need to go back and update it now that we've done the KYW Waters apps. And so I've got to update that and I'll get that out hopefully before the next board meeting. But the board members do have, or you should all have an email copy of what the SIP list is now. Other old business, FEMA and Kentucky emergency management funding status, Todd?
Yeah, so like I was mentioning earlier, we do have $19,088.66 that has been obligated so far for category B measures. Those are primarily for some pumps and stuff that we had to purchase, put back in some of the lift stations to get them operational. The other projects are still, are waiting on the engineering report that I talked about on the water side. We should owe something here in a couple of days on. That will give us which step we're gonna make, next steps of how to get that stuff in place. So the engineer report comes back with matches the dollars that, where we can come in agreement on somewhere between what they say and what our engineer says, and we accept that.
Right.
Then, that's where we negotiate that with them.
And so with that, board, can I get a motion that this board approve for any monies that comes back to reimburse us for cost, that monies gets applied to AWR's invoice? Can I get that motion?
I'll make the motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor? Aye. Okay. Thank you, Todd, for that update. AWR update board on insurance claims. I know you've already touched on that.
Yeah, the big thing, the only really big difference on the sanitation side is that the sites that were in the high flood zone on the sanitation side, that when you do your flood covers, you need to make sure that it's covered. Cause their typical insurance policy is not gonna cover floods, especially if they're in high flood areas. You'll have to get some type of national flood insurance coverage for that. That's what we ran in with this, is a lot of these sites are, they was on like 3 sites on the sanitation side that they said wasn't high flood zone,
Right.
so that's the ones that are gonna get covered. That's the only difference.
So we gotta make sure all infrastructure is covered regardless of location. That's the key. Okay. Thank you for that. Board, I'd like to discuss the King Hotel sanitation progress. Before I get into any motions, Prime AE came back and board, I think I sent out the new design. The new design changed because, I didn't know it at the time, and I apologize to this board, I didn't know that there's a proposed road that's gonna go through where that septic tank's gonna go. That requires a DOT rated septic tank, which means a sticker wall, sidewall sticker cover, it's a more expensive tank. The new cost estimate is that sanitation would have to pay $18,200 to have that installed. I've said many times, this is a problem that's been ongoing for, I think, 34 years now. We have a good plan. The plan will work. We have an easement agreement now with economic development, and that easement agreement was necessary because the district was going to be putting in a septic tank on property of someone else. So we had to get that easement agreement in place. I would like to get a motion to approve the revised construction budget, because if you board remember, the original budget was $11,200, now it's $18,200, so it went up $7,000. That $7,000 is attributed to that tank. And again, I didn't know at the time that there was a road going to go through there, so therefore it's a DOT rated tank. But I would like to get a motion to approve to move forward with one of two things. Either we're gonna solicit this, or if AWR thinks they can do it for that or cheaper, then we need an MOA, memorandum of agreement, because AWR's contract doesn't allow them to do construction. Remember on the meters we had to get the same thing in place? We'd have to do that here. I don't know if AWR even wants to take this on or not, to be honest with you. There is a firm out of Barbersville that does this kind of work. There may be others, I don't know, but you know, I think we would have to, at minimum, solicit it and have the bids come in, and if AWR says, yeah, Tim, we'll take it on and we can do it cheaper than that, then this board can entertain that. Or this board can say, no, AWR, we're gonna go down the path of having a subcontractor do it, you know, that thing. So I'm asking for the board to give me a motion to approve moving forward. Now, what does moving forward mean? I need to set a meeting with the Statons, because obviously they need to be on board with all this as well. And I have not fired off an email to them saying, hey, this is the final position. I haven't done that yet, because I'm waiting on this board's approval. But the next step would be to meet with the Statons and get them on board with the plan and the process and moving forward. And then the step after that I'm asking for this board is I will write a scope of work and solicit it. And then I'll come back to this board with that solicitation, and this board can make a decision at that time what you want to do.
So the state has not agreed to this
Yeah,
yet?
but we're approving it and we don't know that they agree.
You're approving the cost. I can say this, the Statons were on board with the plan, but the Statons were not on board with them having to pay to pump the septic tank. And a little bit further in this meeting, I'm gonna get into septic tank pumping, because there's some things that I need to bring to this board's attention that I failed to do on the August 12th meeting that I wanna correct. And so I need this board's permission to move forward, not just meeting with and talking with the Statons, but soliciting this, because I think, in my heart, I think we can work it out with the Statons. I believe that. And the right thing to do is to install this septic tank, and get them on this type of service, but more importantly, get that sanitation sump done away with. That's in their, I'll call it dungeon, which is the back part of the building that's equal to the floor, the first floor. Get that done away with. So what does that mean? Well, by you know, I'll do the work for the solicitation. That doesn't cost us anything. And then I'll come back before this board with a solicitation, you know, what it would cost. But right now, the engineer's estimate is the cost to the district, $18,200 to do this. Is the estimate.
I'd like to see the agreement before you even do any work, I'm sorry, but I just would.
Okay, you wanna see agreement first?
Yeah, I mean, why should you do all that work if we
think
To
they
the
will,
plan.
and here's why, is the sticking point before, I think, wasn't the septic tank or location or none of that. The sticking point was, and the state's made a great point, is you're telling us we have to pay to pump this septic tank out when no one else in INS pumps septic tanks, number one. Number two is, we don't own the septic tank, so why should we pump it? You know, these are all valid points that they're making. They're good points. Well, you know, later on in this meeting, I'm gonna get into the tariffs for sanitation, and I might as well let the cat out of the bag now. On August 12th, when I presented the sanitation tariffs to the board on pumping septic tanks, you know, I was of the mindset that, well, it costs money to pump septic tanks, so people who have septic tanks pumped, then they should have to pay to have those tanks pumped. I mean, that was my mindset. But in full disclosure, you know, I went back home and I prayed about it, and I talked to the Lord about it, to be honest with you. And the question that came to me was simple. The question was do people pay the same rate per gallon, whether they got gray water or whether they got grinder pumps and they don't have gray water, they pump all their sanitation straight to the treatment plant? The answer is everybody pays the same rate per gallon. From memory, it's 14.08 cents per gallon, from memory. And so that begs the question then, and the question is, well, if they all pay the same rate, then are they all getting the same service? The answer is no. Well, if they're not all getting the same service, then why would you charge somebody who's paying for the full service to pump the septic tanks? The honest answer is you shouldn't. Because they're already paying for it through the full rate. And that's a mistake I made, but you know, in life, when you make a mistake, you own it. But more importantly, you fix it. So, you know, I'm getting ahead of myself, and it's in the agenda here under old business. But I think it's a mistake to charge people who have septic tanks that's on our system, that we're asking them to pay us to pump their septic tank when they're already paying for a full service. Because the people
So
who
are
have,
there some people who have to have have to pay for their septic tanks to be pumped? That was what the concern was, that some people were and some people weren't.
well, here's the thing. We as a district, we don't pump septic tanks if you're not on our system. We don't do that. We don't
Yeah.
pump.
So there never was a difference between in town, out of town.
That's right. That's right. There is no in-town,
That
out.
was our concern.
Right. So,
anyone that's on the system that has a septic tank gets it pumped,
at no cost.
and they pay the rate of, the
They
same
pay-
rate as us.
Someone who's not having a tank to pump it.
That's right. Everybody pays the same rate.
The
So-
only way we charge is if they have something that is a fault on their side and they request us to pump the septic tank.
Yeah, I'll give you an example. I'll give you a grinder pump example, I'll give you a septic tank example. Let's say on the grinder pumps, people are flushing rags, shop rags, whatever, and it jams a pump on it.
Their fault.
It's their fault. Well, then they pay to pump, okay? But let's say on the septic tank side, that they're flushing or they're sending a bunch of debris and all kinds of junk into the septic tank and it backs it up. And they're calling us every couple of months to come out and pump their tank. Most septic tanks, you may have to pump maybe once a year, maybe. So if you're getting called 3 or 4 times a year, something's wrong. But at the end of the day, it's about, again, doing the right thing. And the right thing here is if someone's paying the same rate, but not getting the same service, then we shouldn't charge them to pump their septic tank, because the people who have grinder pumps, they get rid of their solids with their pump. The people who have septic tanks, what they designed to do, and they're hydraulically rated for however much flow is going into them, is they recover the solids because the receiving line, the gray water line, is what they call it, water that leaves the septic tank is called gray water. The gray water line can't take solids. That's why they have to have septic tanks. But they're paying the same rate as somebody who has a grinder pump discharge. So it's not right to charge them extra to pump their septic tanks. That's crazy, because they're
So
already
in
paying.
the tariff, it would be more efficient for everyone to pay the same rate for sewer instead of having a separate rate for gray water and
Yes.
paying for pumping?
So everybody pays the same rate.
No. That's what I'm asking, like, if we're gonna ask them to pay for pumping, you know, could
Then
we
that's-
lower the rate for gray water customers only? Like,
You would have to, but it's cleaner to have the same rate and say, we'll pump your septic tank at no cost. That way everybody's getting the same service.
No.
Yeah.
It's no added cost.
And the cost justification, like, you know, we've got to justify the cost anytime you touch the tariff on water. The rate we're charging and the rate they're paying is enough to cover the cost of the pumping.
And y'all increased that fee back a few months ago.
Yeah.
What it was.
Well, yeah, but, this
My-
board,
My question then, that, are we losing money by having this practice? Put in
how
place?
many septic tanks have we pumped, do you know, in the past, say, 12 months? Or do you know, and just this year, I mean, have we,
And you know how many work orders you put in?
I don't think it's that many, to be honest with you.
No, it's not.
I
You
don't,
don't feel like we're bleeding money on
No,
sewer?
not for that, the big emphasis is gonna be on this is the when you send out a letter of termination saying that it's at the customer's fault.
if it's the customer's fault, then the tariff has to state what the charge will be. We have to do that.
Oh, so you have to have it in the tariff, but it's not for any time. You have to say in the tariff
Right.
for customer fault.
Right, so there'll be less than 500 gallons customer fault, there'll be greater than 500 gallons customer fault, and there'll be a charge. But it'll only be if the customer's at fault. And if AWR says the customer's at fault, and the customer says, well, I'm not at fault, then all the customer has to do is come before this board and say, I'm not at fault, here's why I'm not at fault. And then this board will then decide whether,
And AWR comes and says, this is why
right,
we thought it was.
that's right. So anyway, I apologize I took up so much time there on that.
So
but I-
back to this, you wanted a motion about this. I can understand why, because you wanna get it started, you wanna wait for another month.
Yeah, I don't wanna wait another month, and I honestly believe in my heart that when I sit down with the Statons and I say, look, we're not gonna charge you to pump your tank, we're gonna put the tank in, all we're asking you to do is run the septic from your building, put a hole in your foundation, run the pipe out, and we'll connect to it. And so that's in line with our rules and regulations.
And you can do it now that there's no road there, and so I think that it would be a good time. Now, of course, if they don't agree, then you're not gonna do this.
I'm not gonna do it. If they don't agree, then that opens a different door, because now I don't have an engineered solution, and I don't know where to go from there, to be honest with you. I really don't. I mean, well, actually, I racked my brain trying to come up with an engineered solution. And, you know, there was belief that you could put a septic tank in front of their building on their property, but the problem is I've run the calculations, the tank won't fit, and you don't have enough fall between the line and where the tank would have to go, it'll never work. I've looked at it, it won't work, and so this is a solution, I think, and I'm prayerful that I think this, and say this, that this is in the best interest of everybody, in my opinion.
For the record, I'm very much in favor of fixing the problem.
Yeah, I
just
understand.
wanna know that everybody involved agreed to the solution, that's what I.
Well, that's why the next step is to have a meeting with the Statons and get them on board. But I don't wanna have to wait a month to come back before this board, I just wanna go right into getting the solicitation done, getting quotes back, and maybe by the time we meet again, I've already got the quotes, and the board can look at the quotes and make a decision.
I'll move it, go forward with it.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Chairman, update the board regarding the FIE Kentucky WR's applications. I've already went through all that, I don't think I need to repeat it. If you have any questions, please holler at me, but I think we're good there. The next one, KDOW meeting conducted, so Prime AE, AWR, and myself, we met with KDOW. And if you remember, KDOW came out with a directive, so as a mandate, that we switch the plant from PAA to chlorine. And to switch the plant from PAA, which is parasitic acid for disinfection, for those of you that don't know, it was gonna cost, off the top of my head, $141,000 to do that, because the plant's not set up for chlorine. Nor does it even have a dechlorination step, which would be required. So anyway, we had a meeting with KDOW. KDOW said, look, if you'll put together a plan and you'll submit that plan to us, we'll approve that plan and we'll give you another 6-month performance period. Now, the reason why KDOW agreed to that is because this board approved, and Prime AE did an evaluation, and in their evaluation, they came back and said, well, listen, you need to change the location of where you're putting the chemical in to give yourself more contact time. You also need to double the dosage of what you're putting in. And we did that. And since we've done that, we passed every E. coli test except once, and that was because of our own fault, frankly. Now, what does this mean? I went back to Prime AE and said, can you give me an amendment to that proposal for you to write the plan so that KDOT can approve it to give us the 6-month new test? And I sent this out to the board. The proposed lump sum fee for additional services is $4,000. This board approved the original plan of $4,500 for which they completed and fulfilled. And so I'm asking this board to approve that $4,000 so I can sign this amendment so they can write that plan so that they can get it over to KDOT and KDOT can approve doing a new 6-month study. And I'm confident in this 6-month study, we'll pass it and we'll stay with PAA. And frankly, PAA, parasitic acid, is by far environmentally better product to use for disinfection than chlorine is. The byproducts from chlorine, in my opinion, it's a mistake to use that chemical, in my opinion. So do I have a motion to approve me to sign?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye. All right. Chairman, update the board regarding the billing office lease options. Board, I've talked about that on the water side. It's the same on sanitation. I don't see that I need to give you any additional updates on that. Other new business, Colby Kirk, update the board on the bills paid and bank statements audit.
Yep, this is on the same sheet I gave you in the water meeting. I did the same exact thing on the sanitation side. I pulled 3 bills that were approved in each of the 6 months. So I was able to verify 18 of those 18 items tested by finding copies of the written checks or ACH payments in the approved amounts. I did note that those payments to AWR were a couple months behind, but that was because we're behind in paying. I did find it was hard to track down a couple of payments for Buchanan Pump and Wascon, but you pulled the check stubs and those were just consolidated on one check. So they were paid in the approved amounts and invoices we approved. So overall, everything else was the same. There was the automatic payment for utility issue, but we solved that by forecasting those out.
Good.
So I feel confident in the system for that.
Awesome. All right, thank you, Colby, for that and for your efforts, and thank you AWR for continuing good work on the county side and meeting the PSE requirements. So with that, I consider a motion to revise board approved tariff changes regarding septic tank pumping. Board, I beat the septic tank pumping to death. I don't think I need to talk about that much more. The only other thing that we had changed was on the grinder pump connections. We were charging a flat fee of $2,600. I've asked the board to make that actual cost, which is in line with what you're supposed to do. And gravity connections, we were charging $370. I've asked the board for actual cost on that as well. At our August 12th meeting, those were approved, but I'm asking this board to approve that. And also within this document, I changed the clerk to be Helen Proctor instead of Cassandra. I've made that change, and I changed my title from president to chairman, because I'm not a president. At least I think I.
So what was added, I'm sorry, I guess I'm getting tired.
Yeah.
The actual cost for the grinder pump and for,
Actual cost for grinder pump and actual cost for gravity connection. Yeah, it was $370 for grinder connection. I'm saying actual cost. The grinder connection was $2,600. I said actual cost. Gravity connection was $370, and I said actual cost. The rates don't change. The monthly rates, they're the same. Didn't touch those. And everything else in the document the balance of the document remains unchanged. So with that, can I get a motion to approve the changes to that tariff with the understanding that we still need to complete the legal piece and the notification piece, right? That still has to happen.
Public notification.
Right. The legal piece, Brian needs to look, well, Dustin needs to look at it and say, okay, from a legal perspective is you've checked all the boxes, you met any requirements, criteria, and then the notification piece we have to do as well. And so,
We need to make a motion to hire him as the attorney for the sanitation.
we already did.
We did. I thought we did the water.
And we did water, and then we did.
It's late, we're only about 3.5 hours in. About an hour and a half past my bedtime.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. Okay,
So
so,
approve the tariff changes as presented.
so do I have a motion to approve?
Did
Do
I-
I
did
have
I
a
vote
second?
yes on
I
that?
have to do it.
Done? Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All in
Okay, good.
favor?
Aye.
Me.
This was a motion by Kirby.
Thank you.
Thank you. Consider a motion for Secretary and Treasurer to solicit insurance coverage for the district, the same as water, but it's also for sanitation. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Motion to approve removal of Cassandra Moore and add Helen Proctor as the administrator for access to all Martin County Sanitation District bank accounts. Do I have a motion?
You just did
So
that.
moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion to approve NAC bid for INS wastewater rehabilitation project. I've talked about that already. They are within budget, and we have completed, thank you, Jesus, 60 days of negotiations. So do I have a motion to award the work to NAC and move forward with a contract?
Motion made.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye. All right. Do we need a motion to consider closed executive session?
You better say that.
No? Okay. Do we have any guest speakers?
I'm not on the list, but yes.
You're on the list.
You are.
Well, for the other meeting. Like I said earlier, most of my water usage does go out to my customers. We're cleaning the parking lot, watering flowers, all that. We serve everything out on paper. We use very little water inside the business. That's why years ago, my mother had asked for a set rate. She even asked if they could meter the sewage usage, and Mr. Cumbo said, we don't have the ability to do that. And he said, how about we come up with a fair amount? And so they came up with a set rate. I realize rates have changed over the years, and the cost of water and all that good stuff. So I was just asking if the board would consider giving me an adjustment every month. I think it would be fair to say that 50% of my water usage does not go into the sewage system. So I'm just asking the board to consider that.
I think the board needs to evaluate that, and Colby, you're correct. I think we need to see what other districts are doing.
So what happened on this was I don't remember exactly when it happened, but several months ago, we done the audit of the billing. And what we found, there was like 5 or 6 customers that were getting that flat rate, which was at the time was $33 plus your $5 MS charge, which is $38 a month is what they was paying. And we couldn't find anything that backed up them paying that flat rate, so we switched everybody to.
So the 5 customers who were getting it, were those businesses or were those residents? What was that?
It was all businesses.
It was all businesses. Okay. And so I think what we need to do is we need to evaluate what are other districts doing. But I also think we need to take a look at adding that to the tariffs. There needs to be language in this tariff that addresses that, so it's documented and it's
How many
proven.
is it going to affect? How many would it affect?
He's saying 5.
Well, that's at the time what
That's
we had
just-
in the flood,
Right.
that's what was in the system.
Yeah.
I guess that'll be the slippery slope that you'll have to define, because what's gonna happen is people gonna say, well, I'm pressure washing my house, I don't want that paid for. So you wanna
Right,
make
but
sure you wanna make sure
Historically, the only ones we charge flat rate sewer for were the ones with well water. We got no way of measuring
Right.
the consumption.
Yeah.
And I realize that, my business is unique. It's the only one I believe that's on the city sewer system.
Yeah.
that we are strictly carry-out only, we don't have a dining room, we don't have indoor dining facilities, we don't have indoor restrooms for customers, you know.
Yeah. Well, what we need to do is we need to see what other districts are doing. We need to see what's fair and reasonable and what's the right thing to do. And then we need to, adopt some language, get it into our tariff and approve that, and then post that with proper notifications, before it takes effect. The part that I'm struggling with is, Brian, do you know, was there anything written, or is there anything, an agreement on businesses and flat rate charges of any kind?
I'm not familiar with that at all, Tim, this is the first I've heard it here tonight.
Okay.
I could tell you that my parents purchased the business in 91, and my mother and Niles come both sat down in 92. And I don't know how they came up with the figure with the flat rate. I don't know if it was percentage of usage. I don't remember, it's been 30-some plus years, but,
Well,
And I'm not suggesting that didn't happen.
no, I understand.
I was in law school at the time, so.
Sometimes it's good to understand the history, to understand the path forward.
She talking about the time, 91, if I'm not badly mistaken, the sewer bill, of course, it was Inez only and gray water only. The sewer bill then, I think, was either 13 at the end, or maybe 19, you might remember that, you remember that far back. Somewhere around 91, here's what happened. They had surplus money left when they put the system in. Instead of paying the debt off, they applied it to the payments. So, so it kept the monthly payment down.
and my parents purchased the business from Dick.
But-
So he probably remembers more than I do about this.
Well, I don't want to toot a horn, but, we didn't start having rate problems until the mid-90s when the kitty went away. And we had to get it up, and, I think we were looking around $19, $20 a month. And we had a city council deal with to go in and say, hey, here's the numbers, we need a raise.
Yeah.
And the fight was on.
Yeah.
And, but we knew from time to time we would have to raise some, you know, it's the same area that it has now, but everything's changed.
Right.
And, so it was hitting around $20 a month, but I don't remember exactly how much the flat rate was there, because as she says, there's only a small percentage of the city water, should we say, that goes into the system, the sewer system.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, you don't put the water down the sewage system that goes into your fountain coke or whatever.
Yeah, so let's do this. Colby, I know I've been leaning on you quite a bit, but, can you take a look at what other districts, and I'll reach out, and Todd, you reach out, and let's find out what other districts are doing. And then if you don't mind, you also email that to me, find out what other districts are doing. I'll compile it, I'll get it out to the board members, and then from it, I'll craft some language around that I think is fair and reasonable, to businesses. And the reason why I say that is I can tell you, I'm opposed for this to be for homes. Homes, if they have a swimming pool, they have an avenue. They say, well, I filled my pool, here's how many gallons I filled my pool, we credit that, right?
Once a year.
Yeah, once a year. And so they have an out, but businesses don't have an out. And so we need to look at that. Thank you for bringing that to our attention.
Thank you.
Hopefully the next regular board meeting, which will be the fourth Tuesday, in, was this August, September, we'll have, hopefully some language around that we can.
Well, you would have a cost, you have a cost on cleaning, the same as you have a cost on producing, delivery. So you'd have to know the approximate number, you should know the exact number of gallons that go through each month. And you should know the cost on that, and you should be able to determine the cost on that many gallons and then divide that by whatever, if the usage is only 50% of what goes in and the other
Yeah,
50%
But
goes
we
out.
don't measure how much sewage, we
Right,
only
we don't manage that, but
water.
here's the thing, is we'll have to make it, I wanna see how they craft the language around what they've assumed. Cause if they have language on this, it'll be, they will have an assumption of consumption. They'll say, we metered how much came into your business, and we're gonna assume X% was not consumed, or discharged, so therefore it's assumed as part of your business practice, and therefore won't be in the sanitation. So let's just figure out what that is, and then let's regroup on that, but thank you, we will take that on.
And I will try to be here, but like I said earlier, we spend as much time at the James Cancer Center as we do here at home, so.
But we're gonna take it on, not just for you, but for all businesses, we're gonna look at, across the board, because I think that's important, and we need to get that documented in our tariffs as well. All right, so with that, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.